Okay, hi everybody, it's me Rainbow Fro, and I am going to talk about my poly life. This is actually the first video on my channel. So, hi, I'm Rainbow Fro, and so I'm in a poly relationship, and I wanted to talk about it because I don't really see a lot of media representation about blacks in poly life that are not male-led. And what I mean is female-led relationships or poly relationships that are orchestrated by women. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about my situation and highlight some points that, kind of occur naturally in my life and relationship. So just a little bit of background about me. I consider myself to be a cis woman, black woman, of African descent. And I identify as bisexual or queer, you could say, but I would say more so identify myself as bisexual because I have had male partners and I've had female partners. Majority of my partners have been female. And so I am in a female relationship, a relationship with another female. And if you follow me on Instagram, RainbowFro87, then you've seen my wifey and you know what she's all about. But with that said, our relationship is a little different than some of the poly relationships that I've been exposed to in real life and also that I've seen on TV. Or read about, online and things like that. So I just wanted to talk about us first. So I met my partner a long, long time ago and we never dated actually. Like there was no time that we were like, okay, let's try to be in a relationship. We were just really good friends and, sexual things happened in the context of our friendship, but it was never like we actually were dating. So, and I had other partners and she had other partners and everything was fine. We'd never really mixed our partners together, if you can kind of like understand what I'm saying. So she had other partners, I had other partners, but her partners were never my partners necessarily and vice versa. So, and sexual partners, I want to say like that's the main thing is that I think before I get into the misconceptions, I'll just talk about what ours looks like. So her sexual partners were not my sexual partners. However, we considered ourselves to be sexual partners, but not all the time. So yeah, it's the T. So contrary to a lot of people's belief, that we are just best friends or that we are just fucking, like there was never the just. It was always everything is on the table all the time when we wanted and kind of like always had access to just being intimate. And I think that the intimacy factor in our relationship has grown beyond sexual content or context because it's not like I or she is deprived per se, but at the end of the day, there is just an understanding that, there's certain sexual needs that the other person cannot fulfill or is unwilling to fulfill, but that does not break our relationship at all. So, I know it's kind of like crazy to think about that. So we were best friends, or we are best friends, and then we lived together, and then we dated a lot of other people. We had a lot of relationships in between there, and then we decided that kind of like poly came into my life without me trying to label it as I'm a polyamorous person. I basically just said, okay, well, this person in my life is super important to me and I love her. And eventually I just started disclosing that to my partners before we even began any type of relationship. Oh my God, something's in my eye. Okay. Something's in my eye. Okay, so we just started to disclose to our additional partners that, we have this person in our life and this is her and she's always going to be here and this is just the context of our relationship and you can accept it or you could, go the other way. And for a lot of the partners, I think they were just confused because they saw our relationship as a friendly relationship as well as very close. So there was a lot of confusion that we couldn't even explain. So as time went on, we finally decided that we were in a poly relationship and that it was okay and that we were okay and that we didn't want to change anything that was working in our relationship. So that just brings me to my next point is that although, some of the relationships that we initiated with others that we didn't even know how to explain our relationship, first off, those relationships did not end in a successful situation. I think the ones that we finally were able to kind of like define our relationship a little bit more before we started in an in-depth relationship were a little bit more successful in a sense because we didn't have to, the person didn't have to guess what our relationship was. And they knew like I wasn't here to interfere between her and her lover and vice versa for me. However, yes, jealousy still exists and all that good stuff. But because we know each other really, really well, I we both take priority, in a sense of I don't want my partner, even though I am pursuing a different partner, to feel like this other partner is taking it away from what we have because that's absolutely not the goal of poly. So I will get into the misconceptions because this is the thing that people really, really want to know. And that's, do you have threesomes? Do you have orgies with all of your partners all the time? And the answer is no. I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but I know there are a lot of poly relationships that are inclusive of sex, and that is something that they build a relationship on, I guess you can say, or just to have a partner that is there for sexual pleasure. However, that is not necessarily how ours works because we have a clear understanding of our relationship. So whoever comes into our relationship can also have a clear understanding of it. And we are not necessarily like, okay, well, you have to sleep with her and you have to sleep with me and you have to sleep with everybody all the time. And if you're sleeping with them and not me, then I'm jealous. So no, that doesn't happen. And it can happen. It's allowed. I'll say it is okay if it happens, but it's not something that is the main focus. Our main focus in our poly life is to build a loving relationship around surrounding each other. So whoever loves my partner, I love them too, So it's like I want to open my heart so that, if they're making her feel good, making her happy, and she's happy in that relationship, then I am supportive of that and vice versa. And we also are very protective. So anytime, something happens where there's like a breakup or a fight or anything like that, we get very overprotective. I would say overprotective, but just like protective of, our friends, our relationship, because it affects me when someone is hurting her and also it affects her when someone's hurting me. Like we're not unaffected, even though we're not technically in a sexual relationship with that other person. And so how do we live? How we live, we basically live together. We're okay with that. We talk about not living together sometimes, but at the end of the day, we don't really think that is something that we want to do. I think that's something that society expects us to do is finally not live together. But I think that's just like not gonna happen. So yes, we live together. And as far as privacy and stuff like that is concerned, like I'm unbothered when my partner is having sex with another person. Like I want to say I'm unbothered because I know that it's something that she wants and it's consensual and it's not anything that's going to basically tear our relationship apart. Sometimes partners come in and they think that, that's the goal is for them to like try to separate us, but we're not like up underneath each other all the time. However, we do spend a great amount of time together and we connect on a very, very, very spiritual, soulful level. So that's like an unbreakable thing. So for those partners who kind of come in with that thought process, they usually don't last because they just don't understand it. And also, we're not trying to force anybody into our lifestyle. We just tell people who we are, what we are about up front, and then allow them to decide. So, as far as poly relationships working in kind of like the media, like, okay, so the media, I think the media portrays poly relationships as if the man wants to just have a whole bunch of women, like a harem or concubines or something like that. Like, it just portrays it as a very, I guess, satanic, I guess you can say, type of situation because, you know, men need certain things. I'll just say it like that. And this is something I can't understand from a male perspective, but I've heard this from men is that they have needs. So they portray it as, you know, if a woman can't fulfill some of my needs, then I need another woman just in case, you know, that woman can't fulfill. And I just feel like that mentality of poly relationships is why people are like so ill and grossed out about it, because it does kind of portray it as like, well, you know, you should cater to a man's sexual desires because, you know, he needs all these women. So you should make sure he has that. But I don't think that, but here's my input on that, is that the women in the relationship are playing a huge part because they are being cooperative. They want this too. This is not something that they're forced to do. So they want this too, and they're being cooperative because they want to satisfy their personal desires as well. So women that are in poly relationships that are actually the seeker, I guess you could say, of another partner, to me, that actually works a lot better because, or I'm going to compare and say better. I'll just say that happens and it could work better because the woman is basically deciding that she wants to bring another woman in and not allowing the man to make that decision for her. Especially, you know, when it comes to, you know, babies and stuff like that. Like, women can be very territorial of their father of their children and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, when it comes to like female and male polyamorous relationships, then that could be a reason that, you know, they don't work because there's just so much stuff going on at the same time. And additionally, I will say that, you know, relationships with three people, they say, I'm studying sociology, so I forget what the terminology is called, but they say that if it's three people involved, then those are the weakest relationships. So I always look at it like, you know, if there's four people involved, then there doesn't have to be a weak relationship because you have, so for example, like I have a partner, my partner has a partner, and we have each other. And then our partners may or may not have other partners, but I think that if they do have other partners, that's pretty much the decision between, for example, my partner and I. If or she has another partner, then that is something that we kind of talk about and decide because of our relationship. And I think that, you know, from my experience, I can kind of say that being bisexual kind of complicates this because I've been in relationships with women majority of the time. And, you know, women are very, well, I'll just say like lesbian relationships. You know, you don't necessarily think that a man should be a part of the relationship. But because my partner and I are so in tune with each other and we know what we want and we're okay with that, we are open to allowing males in our relationship. And I'll say our relationship because it's mainly what I desire and what I need and how I would like to conceive a child. So that part is okay. And I'm not at all, you know, sneaky about it. I just basically had a conversation and with my partner, and over time, you know, made a decision and said, you know, this is something that I want to try because I was in relationships with strictly females for over a decade. So, but I love females. I love women. I love everything about being in a relationship with a woman. However, that factor of, you know, trying to conceive a baby, you can't really get around that. I mean, you could spend a lot of money to conceive, but I just don't want to do that. I just think that the natural way that God intended is for me. So, and we can get into that later, but those are my beliefs. So that's just separate from poly in general, but those are my beliefs. But I think that my poly life is somewhat different than what the media portrays and maybe what others experience, because sometimes people are in relationships where they're committed for a long period of time and then decide that they're going to add another partner. And then that's when things get really rocky, because you're really invested in this one person and you've had a monogamous relationship for a long time, and now you want to introduce someone else into the relationship that may or may not have your best intentions, may not even understand what your relationship is. And I think that can create conflict, and it does. But it doesn't have to be the end all be all, because I think if you are honest and true about what you want with your partner, and your partner is honest and true, I always advocate for people that are monogamous. Don't feel like you have to be poly because you are attracted to or interested in someone that identifies as poly or is in a poly relationship. If that's not something that you feel in your heart that you would choose for yourself, then my recommendation is don't get into it. Well, you could try it, but don't don't be surprised if it fails, or if you have feelings about it that are jealous or unsavory or whatever the case is. Like, I think that you have to be honest with yourself first and foremost if that type of lifestyle is something for you. And I'm not even going to say that for myself. I 100% can I can't express at what point in my life that I decided that I was poly, because it just kind of chose me. Like, having a partner, being in a monogamous relationship, being faithful, then realizing that, you know what, I actually am capable of loving others, and I do love others, and even like breaking up with people and then realizing that our friendship bond is stronger and I have a stronger love for them, aside from the romantic side, was actually what made me realize that I, really am a polyamorous person. And I don't necessarily choose to seek other partners. I just know that the construct of my relationships allow for that. So, yeah. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about, I guess, for this first introductory video about my poly life. I have a lot more details I guess I could have added. I wasn't trying to like read notes or anything like that in this first video. I just wanted to come out raw and just tell you guys how I feel about this and what's on my mind. But if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Subscribe like this video, subscribe to this channel if you want to know more about my life. Follow me on Instagram at rainbowfro87 if you want to see more of me and what I have planned for this year. And yeah, so I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and hair grease. Bye.